What's up, family? So, lately Michelle Obama's been making headlines again, not for policy work or public appearances, but for the podcast tour she been on. And to be honest, it got people talking for a lot of reasons. Some folks are celebrating the openness, the humor, the relatability, but others, I guess you could say like myself, maybe, I don't know, I'll let you be the judge of that. We just having a conversation. Are sitting here and asking, what's the end game here? Because when you are a former first lady, especially one who's been as historically significant as Michelle Obama, every public word hits a little different or differently. And that's what's rubbing me the wrong way. It's not that she's cracking jokes or being real about her marriage. Everybody goes through ups and downs. And this in a little thermostat war with your partner, which you guys would see what she was talking about in this clip we're about to play, is nothing new. But when those personal moments become public content, you start to wonder, is this really for connection or is it crossing into something else? But I'll let you guys be the judge of that. Let's actually check out the clip and then I'll give you more of my opinion. Let's go.
Well, now let's turn to this. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has been on quite the podcast spree these days, and it feels like she's airing her and, well, her own and President Obama's dirty laundry. Let's try to look at that.
Sometimes I get in the bed and I'm freezing.
Yes.
And other times it's like, oh my God, take my skin off.
It's like, the change in temperature is wild. For any woman, anytime, but especially at this age.
It's a battle with a partner, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's always cold. And I'm like, do not touch. And sometimes I wake up hot and I'll wake him up. Did you touch the thermostat? You touched the thermostat, didn't you? He's like, it didn't, I swear to God. He now knows he's afraid of the thermostat. I said, I don't care what you do. Do not touch anything in this room after I go to sleep. Do you wear an eye?
You know what? I'm just not ready for that. No. I'm not ready to hear about her menopause and waking up hot. It's a lot. It's a lot for a first lady. So I don't know if she's joking around or throwing shade at her husband. Question. Her latest comment to Airbnb CEO is certainly raising some eyebrows. Watch this.
You know, I have to say, Brian, if I'm a single girl out there and I find out that Brian Chesky is single and I can like stay in his house,
there she
have
goes.
you ever
Right to the relationship, but Brian, you don't have to be feel pressured.
No, but we've never talked about this.
He just got here.
Have you ever?
Her and her husband have tried to set me up before, so
I'm very invested in Brian's love life.
Tommy.
Everybody's got a podcast now. Isn't that crazy? Listen, I like when we see leaders from whatever party. I like when we see them kind of drop the facade and be themselves. I think we all enjoy that. I'm not mad at her for telling personal stories. But there is something about being a first lady and maybe kind of guarding a legacy a little bit, especially since it's the Obamas. People love the Obamas. And she's kind of airing out all the dirty laundry. I don't know if she's doing it for views because her podcast initially was struggling a little bit.
Saw that.
And so maybe she feels that she needs to do this, throw some dirty laundry out, make it like a reality show to get some more eyeballs and attention. But it's certainly not like any first lady we've seen before.
Well, he could just date Villachek's girlfriend and get lots of attention for both of them. Sorry, too soon. So, Alicia, this is like a give-up day when someone just puts their sweats on and says, I give up. Like, let me just let it all hang out. I mean, what is going on?
I think to Tommy's point, it just might be content, and she might just be looking for people listening. I will say, just on a personal note, I'm very glad that my husband and I agree on the temperature in the house. We have that in common. Thank God for the car, because you can have independent climates, and I can, he can have the air conditioning on, have it cold, and I can warm it up and have this seat heater on, and that's wonderful. But as for their marriage, I don't know. You don't hear him doing that.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Can I just say, the first thought I had, this is a guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's arguing with his wife about the temperature because he needs his blanket. He needs an.
Stars are just
I know
like us,
I don't want to get too much into their bedroom, but the point is, I don't see Mother Teresa being worried about the temperature or Albert Schweitzer, needing an extra blanket. I mean, it just. it doesn't fit the idea of my old idea of what a Nobel Peace Prize winner would be willing to do. I don't know.
Are you saying it's not noble?
Yeah.
Haley?
My husband and I argue over the temperature all the time, so I get it. I love this. I'm a sucker for palace intrigue. I love learning this about them. It reminded me of like one of my favorite moments when Greg Gutfeld asked Melania Trump about whether Donald Trump wore pajamas or not.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. Like, I just really appreciate those insider details. I think it's funny. I think it's interesting. And I think it's relatable.
Okay.
I want the Jill Biden podcast next.
Yes.
So, Jill,
don't
why
put our
didn't you
mind
try
there.
to save him? Okay.
Hey, everyone.
All right, family. So now, don't get me wrong. Michelle is entitled to her story. But let's not pretend she's some regular woman talking on a podcast. She's the former First Lady of the United States. She was part of a legacy moment in American history as the first black woman to ever hold that role. And with that status comes a level of influence. And yes, responsibility. So when the content starts to sound like she's venting about her husband on a public stage, it feels less like lighthearted storytelling and more like unnecessary exposure. Some of the things she shared recently about menopause and the cold, hot bedroom battles and about who controls the thermostat, as you guys heard, these are things millions of women go through. I get that. But when she frames it in a way that makes her husband sounds weak or clueless, it doesn't sit right. It paints a picture that I think inadvertently chips away at the very foundation that made their public marriage so respected. There's also the question of intention, right? We all ponder amongst it. You've seen the people on the Fox forecast as well, pondering upon it, right? And because it's not like she needs the money, right? So that's why I say, what is it just makes you question it makes you question the intention. What's the mission here? Because she don't need the money. The Obamas have multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix, books that stay on the bestseller list, all that prestige that comes with their post-White House legacy. So this is about staying relevant? Is it about building a new kind of platform? Maybe. Maybe it's just about being heard on her own terms. But at times, it feels like the focus isn't on uplifting or inspiring. It's on control or maybe even overshadowing the legacy they built together with her husband. And that becomes complicated when every story seems to orbit around what Barack didn't do right or what he didn't understand. It's less, here's how we grew together, and more of, here's what I had to deal with, if that makes sense, family. And a lot of people won't say this out loud, but I will. Um, there's an unspoken pressure that's always going to be on um the Obamas and Barack Obama more specifically, right? And when someone like Michelle Obama chooses to go public with content that feels a little too personal, it affects how people not just perceive her, but her husband, because she's a representation of her family, let alone a reflection of her husband. I feel like a strong man stands behind a strong woman stands behind a strong man, and the man is leadership, right? The man leads. And it can also reinforce the stereotype that women can be dominant, you know what I'm saying? Always correcting her man, always out front while the man fades into the background, in this case, her husband, right? She can seem very dominant in her marriage. It gives off the personal, let alone now she's trying to write her own story. Um, I'm tired of my family legacy type of vibe. So does that make sense, family? And the internet, when you put it on the internet, it stays there forever. So I'm just being very objective and just having a conversation. What do you guys think? And that's not true when it comes to the men fading in the background. In this case, her husband, because now she wants to orbit things around her. When you become one, you're always, the legacy is what's important. The family, that's one. And I don't believe that it should be normalized to orbit it around the wife dominating the husband, or the husband dominating the wife. It just, the man leads and the family go in the right direction, upholding the legacy, and let alone they have a different type of influence because she was the first lady of the United States and he was the president. I'm not saying she should be silent. I'm not saying she can't be funny or human, but there's a line, family. There's a way to do it that uplifts and includes that uplifts and includes rather than diminishes. And there's a difference between storytelling and subtle criticism. And when Michelle jokes about controlling a house, about scaring Barack away from the thermostat, or when she flirts on air with other high profile men under the guise of humor, it doesn't make you laugh. It makes you think. And if someone's laughing, they're still thinking, is she trying to rewrite the story of who's really in charge? And if so, why? You know? So look, I'll be real with you. Um, there's people that miss the Michelle Obama who stayed a bit more behind the scenes. I do personally. I miss the Michelle Obama. I believe some things should not be said. But I believe I like the more staying behind the scenes Michelle Obama, who inspired with her Let's Move campaign, who was pushing for education and voting rights and not talking about bedroom spats and menopause transitions in a way that feels performative. She was the gold standard for grace and dignity. But now with every episode or headline, it feels like we're getting further away from that image and closer to something that's just, I don't know, off brand. And again, I know people will say, well, that's your perception. Why should you care? Um, why should some people would say, will say that, well, that's your perception. Why should she care? And maybe she shouldn't. But when you're built your fame on a public admiration and culture influence, perception does matter. And it's part of what made her a symbol in the first place. And as someone who generally looked up to the Obamas, a lot of people did, just within their marriage and how they came, grew things together and built things together. We hope she'll continue being that steady presence in the public eye. And some people may be just a disappointing shift because, like it or not, what she says, how she says it, affects people's view of her marriage, the Barack's legacy, and leadership role within her own household, which is nobody's business. That's their personal business. So maybe I'm old school, traditional values. Maybe I believe a little more discretion. Maybe I believe that not every story needs to be told on a mic, as I believe. But I also believe that influence is power. And when you got the power, it's worth asking, how are you using it? Because the answer to the question will always speak louder than any podcast ever could. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's my take on it. And I know, family, peace. Let me know your thoughts.